state and federal historic landmarks. We shouldn't really have a problem taking those that are already under state and federal, which are probably more restrictive, and turning them into a town, a town landmark. I mean, they're already approved by the state as a landmark. We couldn't impose any more restrictions on it by making them. So there's
No,
even,
my
those
only,
are
my only concern
non-issues
is
of
that
those.
and I don't want to leave something for the next generation to be burdened with. We should do this, as the commissioner said here, thinking about voluntary. But my concern is, I'm a property owner, okay? Now, I've been living there, or I've had a business there for 25 years. All of a sudden, the committee's going to come to me and say, guess what? You know what? We're going to designate, or at least move to designate your property as a historical site. And I'm going to say, no, I don't want that. So my question is, do we go by the decision of the homeowner, or I'm sorry, the property owner, or are we going to force that property owner to give up their rights? I see a giving up of a property owner's rights to do what they want with their property. So that's my only problem with this.
I understand that part. And the whole point of the historic ordinance, which I assume was your intent in approving the ordinance, was to protect properties that are historic value to this town and the history of this town. And I would think that you want to have some protections on, really valuable properties. There's no way that we really feel like we would force something down someone's throats. We want to be able to have a method by which we can at least give them guidance as to how to renovate a property that might be we might determine is historic. We have to go through a lot of historic research and proofs to bring a building to the committee, to the planning board. And it's the planning board that's going to make the decision. We don't. I mean, we present a case, and again, I think that the new regulations give us a better handle on having a homeowner come in and make their arguments as to why they don't want it. So that kind
We
of
actually have two opportunities to object.
Right.
One would be at the committee level,
Mhm.
and one would be at the planning board level, if it got that far.
I
Well,
think,
you would hope. You're right.
I think the scenario you're proposing, it certainly could happen. I think it's going to be the exception, not the rule, and I can't foresee too many scenarios, even in 20 years from now, where we're going to so aggressively go after a property that we would take someone's rights away from them. That's not our intention. And theoretically, could it happen the way it's proposed here? Yes. Do I really feel it's going to go that far? And especially with the new revisions and the amount of opportunities we're going to give the homeowner. If a homeowner comes and objects and they have valid objections, even the committee would probably back down at that point. If there was some,
go on to the next
You
go on
would,
to the next
but
one.
will the committee 25 years from now?
That's the responsibility of the committee.
But I think it's the responsibility, all right? And listen, you're a tennis player. I have no argument. I think it's the responsibility of the governing body, or no matter who we are, to protect the individual rights of people. And I'm really, really concerned about, we live in a litigant society, and I could see somebody saying, hey, wait a minute, this is my property, for goodness sakes. I've been here for 30 years. Now you're telling me that you're going to impose, and for lack of a better word, all right, but you're going to impose your will on me? You see, that's what I'm afraid of. I'm worried about that. I certainly wouldn't want that to happen to me. So I'm trying to avoid going down that road, and I think the voluntary way is, if we had in the ordinance, look, education is great. Look, I would probably welcome something like that. But then you got people who say, look, it's my property, buddy, So if you have something built in there that makes it clear that it's not being imposed on them, that it is voluntary.
We don't have any problem with
But
those.
what is your thought if I put my
Checks and
house on it
balances.
and I agree to it, and then I sell my house in 10 years? Does that new owner get the right to
No, I
negate
think,
that?
no, I would say that
That it
if you
travels
agree
with the
to it,
house.
it should be part of
Mhm.
the
It's like the
explanation, so
variance
they
and
know
the
what they're
property.
getting into.
Mhm.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Variances go with the property. You can't go with the owner
Yeah.
of the
Right.
property.
I
Am
think
right,
that's
Alan?
the fair thing.
Mhm.
I was just gonna say, I live in a house that's on the National Register. And I am proud to live in a house that's on the National Register. And, being on the committee, I know what's going on. But I know, we do not do anything to disturb the the house, you know, people call up and they wanna put aluminum siding or plastic on the house, and I slam the phone down on them. And I'm not the only one, some of the others, of us on the enclosure do the same thing, because we do not want, you know, to have the house destroyed.
That's a whole neighborhood
Yes,
that's
historic
really
fabric.
proud of their whole
destroyed.
street. I mean, I was, you know, my property was unofficially put on a Nutley, was considered a Nutley historic, you know, the buildings in my property, because they had some historic, value to the train system, the mail system on the trains in that area. And there was a plaque made by Nutley to say this is historic. It was before the ordinance was into that. But a lot of people come by and, you know, little names on, the names of the original owners of the houses, and plaques on our building, and
Look, they're
people
nice.
are always intrigued by it and feel.
I agree with you 100%, but I'm stuck on that one problem of, you know, just going into somebody, you know, telling them, look, this is your property, but that's the only issue I have with it. I agree with you. I think it's great. I've seen houses on the enclosure. They got the plaques. It's great stuff. Really keeps the character of the town, but, you know, I just have a little bit of problem with that.
You know, like I said, people have come, we really got our hands full with people coming to us wanting to put their houses on historic. Now, I know your concern is probably someone down the line selling the house, but if the person is willing and wants their house on this,
I think that's fine.
and other towns nearby seems to be successful there. I don't know if there's been issues in those towns, but I'm sure there's always a case here and there, Glen Ridge or Montclair that may have. I know I've dealt with cases in Montclair where I've had to, I had to go in front of a historic committee to do a renovation, but there was always a way around, you know, to negotiate a renovation to the house, and, you know, they impose, just use the right colors, use the right materials, do what you want to do, but, you know, do it tastefully. And it always seems to work out.
Interior, right?
That was exterior.
Correct.
I had to do a porch on an exterior house.
Interior's exempt.
It was in a historic neighborhood, and we, you know, we worked it out at the meeting, and it was perfectly fine. I think this was
Just Tom Evans. Just a couple things. One is, and I think Commissioner Tucci would recall as well that when the first version of this was originally put forth, is that there was an intent that the participation would be voluntary. And so I was a bit surprised when I didn't see language in the ordinance that referred to that. So one of the questions that I had was in this particular, the latest version of the ordinance that I read, which had all of the notice requirements, and there was a lot of requirements that are associated with coming to the planning board, giving notice around all of this. Is it possible in the ordinance to create a sort of a category which talks about voluntary participation that doesn't require as much involvement of the resources of the planning board, possibly any testimony or things like that, other than maybe a submission to the planning board, which they can discuss at their workshop meeting, which can again, in fact, approve it, simply because of the voluntary nature. So that, as you said, many of these things will be, people will want to participate. And it would be if there was more of an exception where there was some dispute whether or not the building truly is historical or whether or not the owner wanted to participate, that they had the ability then to go before the planning board with proper notices and so on. So two things. One, it doesn't overly burden the property owner. If they're voluntarily wanting to participate, I think it then allows for the preservation committee to engage in giving them advice, counsel, things that are important, which is very productive. And then it also manages the calendar of the planning board and the resources of the planning board in order to arrive at a decision. So that was one question that I had about showing some distinction in the ordinance. And I just heard it, but I wanted to also ask the question, excuse me, the ordinance seems to focus primarily on maintaining the external appearance of the building that's designated of historical significance, didn't seem to address the significance of the fact that the interior of the building might be significant historically as well. Did I read that right?
Yes.
That is correct.
Exclusion, yeah.
Part of it is that it's tough to know when somebody's tearing out a mantle inside their house or something inside. The other part is we were, thinking about the look of the town as somebody drives through it. So not wanting to throw the sort of bathwater out with the baby, if we can't do the interior, which I'm fine with, the exterior is what we were looking to preserve the look of. So the interior, I think, is a whole nother can of worms. I also think it brings up the question about how do you really enforce, it's clear when somebody takes out windows or puts a new roof on the building, they need a permit to do that. To do some interior work that, as I say, takes a mantle, it takes some woodwork down, is something that could be done without us even being aware of it. And I think if we added the interior into this, I don't know that we would ever get anything done, that we would ever get something passed.
But if the owner was aware of it and voluntarily participates, wouldn't they also want to participate in preserving what's historically significant regarding the interior?
They would.
Yeah, I think they would.
It would- Not all interiors, not all interiors are worthy, so we would have to probably determine in our findings and our presentation whether or not the exterior and the interior were just as important. More than likely, it's less of an issue because there are so many changes inside that, there are a few houses whose interiors are still worthy of designation. If someone volunteered it, I think if it was worth it, we would certainly include the.
That would be fine if they volunteered, but we also felt we didn't want to go into this. We didn't want to go into people's homes. It's one thing to do the exterior, which is sort of a neighborhood thing seen by all, but we kind of felt that going into a home. But we did discuss that certain other ordinances do allow for interior preservation, but that would certainly be on maybe as needed basis or a very special situation. But we did